Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is waiting for the full release of the Zondo report before responding to its finding of profound state corruption. The first installment of the investigation accused former President Jacob Zuma of having encouraged graft by his closest aides. Also, Tunisian doctors say that they're worried about the former Justice Minister and Ennahda party vice president, who's been on hunger strike for several days after having been arrested. His family say that he's hovering between life and death. And preparations are in full swing in Bafassoum in Cameroon as it ramps up for the African Cup of Nations next week. Local fans are looking forward to excitement on and off the pitch as their African footballing heroes head into town. But first, rights group Amnesty International is calling on South African President Cyril Ramaphosa to implement the recommendations of an explosive report on corruption under his predecessor, Jacob Zuma. The first part of the Zondo report was released on Tuesday and detailed underhand dealings and cronyism at the heart of Zuma's 9 years in power. Ramaphosa's vowed to crack down on the graft, but will wait until the end of June, after the second and third part of the probe are released, to comment or respond to its recommendations. Nadine Theron joins us now with more. Nadine, so the government's holding off from comment for now, but what's the reaction been from South Africans since the report's release?
Well, South Africans were able to listen to the Zondo Commission hearings throughout the past 2 years. So it was not such a surprise, the findings of the report. But what really South Africans were talking about today was the fact that none of the people implied in the report have been prosecuted at all, even though we've already heard, evidence against them throughout 2021 and 2020. And although there is clear evidence that these people committed criminal deeds, and some of them are ministers who are still in place, and some of the people have lost their positions, but there's been absolutely no criminal prosecution of any of the people implied in the report. And people are frustrated and they don't have faith that there will be any accountability for the corruption outlined in the report. Some say it's surprising that these people have not been arrested yet. There's no reason that they haven't been arrested yet. And, some people are wondering whether, the rich and the elite in South Africa have become untouchable and are protected by government.
So, Nadine, who are you talking about? Did the report specifically mention Zuma as having sanctioned corruption? And is anyone else specifically in the firing line?
Yes, the report specifically singled out Zuma, as all of this happened under his presidency, but not only, he was directly responsible for appointing his cronies in key positions in some of our biggest state entities, like the South African Revenue Services, as well as the South African Airlines, where he appointed people in order to weaken those state entities so that corrupt transactions could take place, which benefited some of his friends, like the Gupta family from India, who have also been named. They fled the country. Some people like Dudu Myeni, the former CEO of SAA, has been named, as well as our former Defence Minister, David Matlobu, and the former SA Revenue Services head, Tom Moyane. And there has been some recommendations in the report for the National Prosecuting Authority to look into these allegations or findings against Dudu Myeni, but no recommendations about Zuma, although Judge Zondo did say that Zuma specifically evaded giving evidence at the Zondo Commission because he knew that he did not want to give the answers sought from him. And that's, of course, why he was ordered to go to prison. He was recently ordered to return to prison, but he has appealed that ruling. So Zuma has still not returned to prison, and his friends are all still free. So there are no recommendations yet about how Zuma should be prosecuted for his role in the state capture. His prison sentence is because of his refusal to appear before the commission. But we expect to be some recommendations by the end of the third report.
Nadine Theron there for us. Thanks very much, Nadine. In other news, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi arrived in Kenya on Wednesday, continuing China's decades-long tradition of kicking off its overseas visits with a trip to Africa. The foreign minister began his 4-day diplomacy tour in Eritrea on Tuesday and then scheduled meetings with President Uhuru Kenyatta in Kenya. Caroline Kimeu tells us more.
The foreign minister's visit comes as the Kenyan government is facing severe criticism for rising debt. Now, several opposition leaders have said that the country has borrowed too heavily from China for infrastructural projects. Under the Belt and Road Initiative, China loaned Kenya roughly $5 billion for the construction of a railway line from the port of Mombasa. President Kenyatta has defended his building of relations with China, saying that it's mutually beneficial and has furthered the development of the country. Still, over 67% of Kenya's total foreign debt is owed to China, and debt repayment still causes some disquiet between the two countries. Now, analysts say that it may form part of the discussions that take place between the two leaders, as well as other issues to do with blue economy and security. As China's influence grows in Kenya and Africa more generally, the U.S. is looking to counterbalance that by investing roughly $40 billion in green projects under the Biden administration's Build Back a Better World initiative. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also paid a visit to Kenya in November last year to build relations between the two countries. Still, China is doubling down its efforts. During the foreign minister's visit, he will go to the port of Mombasa, where China has multiple investments, and sign further bilateral agreements.
Caroline Kimeu there for us. Look now at some news in brief. 6 people have been arrested in Kenya in connection to an attack earlier this week in which 6 people were brutally killed and several homes burned to the ground in Lamu County. Police initially suspected Somali al-Shabaab extremists, but now say that Sunday's bloodshed could be linked to a land dispute. Rescuers kept up the search for the missing in the waters around Zanzibar on Wednesday. At least 10 people died Tuesday night when a boat carrying passengers from the island of Pemba to the Kisiwa Panza islet capsized. 15 people were rescued. The Coast Guard, though, says that the vessel may have been carrying up to 40 people and may have been overloaded when it suffered mechanical problems. Doctors in Tigray say that a lack of supplies has led to patients dying unnecessarily. Fighters from the northern Ethiopian region have been at war with federal troops since November 2020. A lack of critical equipment in Tigray has made routine but essential treatment impossible. Most deaths between July and October there were reportedly caused by disease and starvation. The region's faced what's been described as a de facto aid blockade. On Wednesday, the Norwegian Refugee Council, a charity that once operated in Tigray, said that Ethiopia had allowed it to restart humanitarian work after a 5-month ban. Tunisian doctors say that they're worried about the former Justice Minister Noureddine Biri, who's been on hunger strike for several days after having been arrested last Friday. The 63-year-old's family says that he's hovering between life and death. Some rights campaigners say that he's been illegally detained and accused President Kais Saied of persecuting his opponents. Our team reports.
In this room belonging to the party of ex-President Monsef Marzouki, a critic of President Kais Saied, these opponents to Saied have been on hunger strike for more than 10 days. After Saied suspended parliament, some are out of work, like this former legislator from the Islamist Ennahda party.
Here's the room where the women sleep. We set up everything, so we have everything we need.
The small group claims that the rule of law has broken down.
Our main request is to return to a form of democratic legitimacy. Only after that, we will start a real dialogue.
The political climate is tense. Human rights campaigners are concerned about former Justice Minister and Ennahda Party Vice President Noureddine Biri and another security official who were arrested last week and now face vague terrorism-related allegations.
The arrests were harsh, and there was no information on the reason behind these arrests. We are worried about the second detainee, Mr. Fatih Baldi. We have no news about his situation.
Law experts say authorities are operating in a legal gray zone, which opens the door for abuses.
We don't have the legal basis for everything that's happening now. These latest arrests and house arrests aren't based on the Constitution or even a decree. The president even recognized its unconstitutionality, but we continue to apply these unlawful texts that restrict freedoms.
Despite the criticism, the president is still popular according to polls. On January 15th, he's launching a national online consultation to ask Tunisians about constitutional and legal reforms.
Well, preparations are in full swing in Bafoussam in Western Cameroon as the city prepares to host 8 African Cup of Nations games that will be starting from next Monday. As excitement builds ahead of kickoff, local footy fans say that they're really looking forward to catching a glimpse of some of the African stars who will be heading into town for the tournament. Laurent Berstecker tells us more.
At the Bafoussam City Stadium, volunteers were queuing up to get their official accreditation for AFCON 2022. Just a few days before Group B's opening game between Senegal and Zimbabwe, all were determined to work all hours to try to get everything ready for kickoff.
Mon pays organise une grande compétition et j'ai voulu donner mon énergie, mon temps pour participer à ça.
With the African Cup of Nations due to start on Sunday, the streets of Bafoussam were buzzing with excitement. The city, which will host a total of 8 games, will also be home to the Senegal squad for the duration of the tournament, and many residents were impatiently awaiting the arrival of the star-studded team, which ranks among the competition's favorites.
Nous sommes très fiers d'accueillir les frères sénégalais chez nous à Bafoussam.
Nous sommes fiers d'accueillir Sadio Mané parce que c'est le star africain qu'on a besoin d'avoir ici à Bafoussam.
On Tuesday, Sadio Mané and his teammates met with President Macky Sall, who called the competition a moment of truth. He urged the players to come home with the trophy, one which Senegal has never won, despite twice reaching the final in the past 20 years.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. But for more news from the continent, you can always head to France 24's web desk. Our colleagues there have recently posted an interview with Ugandan novelist Kakwenza Rukirabashia, who was arrested after criticizing President Yoweri Museveni on social media. His family say that he appears to have been tortured. You can catch the full story there on France 24's website. That's it for me, though. Join us again in 45 minutes when I'm back with more. Take care.
Because a new page of history gets written every day. Because breaking news can't wait. Information everywhere. In all situations. On every subject. Understanding the world. Imagining the world. France 24. A different take on the news.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.